So then you got this drama teacher coming in who doesn't know anything. He thinks that the books are going to balance themselves. And I don't understand why people are going to vote for Liberal again. And I hate this stupid thing where people say that, oh, because, the Liberals fight for minorities and they're saying the LGBTQ community. And I'm like, who said the Conservatives are going to do anything for the LGBTQ community? They're not going to take away your rights or any of that. It has nothing to do with that.
Hello and welcome back to the DC Talks podcast. I'm your gracious host, Owen Osinde, and I'm with the man of the hour as usual, Mr. David Chinelli. DC, how you doing?
It's all right. It's been a while.
It's been a minute. We have a lot to talk about today.
Oh, yeah.
It's been some time since Carney's been back and is just taking over for Trudeau as a prime minister. Mm-hmm. First and foremost, what are your thoughts of him being in office?
I hate it. I'm laughing because, first of all, there's polls coming out saying the Liberals are leading. I don't know how much to believe them. Mm-hmm. I think the left media is trying to push Carney as the savior, and that's what people are actually, some people are actually believing that. Mm-hmm. What I don't think people realize is that Carney was the advisor to Trudeau the last 5 years since COVID had started. Yeah. And everything that Trudeau does, which has helped bankrupt Canada, is all been passed by Carney to do so.
Mm-hmm. In the background.
Right, in the background.
People thought it was like Freeland and Trudeau, but he's actually...
Yeah, well, Freeland's not that smart, right? Yeah. So the problem with Carney, I've said this over and over again, he's a very smart man, mm-hmm. right? But he has got no ties to Canada. He's a globalist, right? Think about it, he's moved his family from Toronto and came to the States. He lives in the States. They say, he's part of Brexit in the UK. So he's got UK citizenship. Mm-hmm. He's got no ties to Canada. No one's here for him. Mm-hmm. What he wants to do is fulfill his globalist agenda, which started with Trudeau. Yeah. And Trudeau was seen as the bad guy. The problem with Trudeau, I don't think people realize, was that, he wasn't that smart. Yeah. He was charismatic, but people couldn't stand to look at his face, right? But exactly, he's a drama teacher. He was an actor. Mm-hmm. So there's people behind him telling him what to do. And one of them was Carney. Mm-hmm. And this whole thing about, this carbon tax and all that, like the Liberals have basically starting to bankrupt Canada the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. If you don't believe it, go look at our budget where it was and where it is now. And I've said this on the podcast before. It doesn't matter which political party is going to be in next. They're going to be upward battle because you're not going to be able to fix those books in 5 years. Yeah. So the next party, whatever takes over, whether it's the Conservatives, the Liberals, or NDP, well, definitely Liberals won't fix it. Those continue to get worse and worse and worse. Yeah. I don't understand why people don't get that. It's literally the whole definition of Einstein's insanity, right? Do you know the definition? Doing the same thing.
You do the thing over and over expecting different results. Right. It's not going to work.
And my analogy was, are you a Toronto Maple Leaf fan? I know you're a Raptor fan.
I love the Leafs. Okay. The playoffs, I love the playoffs. Right. Watching the Leafs, yeah.
When was the last time the Leafs won?
It's been like 65 years.
1967, last time Toronto won, right? And every year they're so this whole thing is like, I've related to like, okay, well, the Leafs are winning the cup. They're not getting close. What do they do? Mm-hmm. Well, they change the coach, right? Mm-hmm. But the players will stay the same. Yeah. The GMs will all stay the same. Nothing of the actual matters. Only changing one person, and people get renewed hope and that think that the Leafs are going to win the next year every time they change the coach. And it hasn't happened since 1967. That's the Liberal government. Yeah. Like that's what I don't think people understand, right? The powers behind the figurehead that are running the prime minister, it hasn't changed. So what makes you think it's going to change? And the problem is on top of that, it's not even changed. It's going to get worse. Because Carney is a globalist. And what does that mean? He cares more about the global agenda than he does about Canada. Yeah. So all the bills and stuff he's been passing or that Trudeau has passed is going to continue to do it, and it's going to make Canada worse and worse and worse financially.
Has Canada always been led by Conservatives or Liberals? Like,
I think it's split. Like it's been split. Yeah.
It's been split. Yeah. Because remember when Stephen Harper was in office, like this is back in, I think before Trudeau took over.
10 years ago.
10 years ago. Like people were enamored. Trudeau comes in, he's young, he's like good looking. He's just like, he's a breath of fresh air.
Right.
Harper was actually telling everybody, like, guys, be careful because if you let this person in, you're going to be in for a rude awakening over the next 10, 15 years. And people looked at him and thought, like, you're crazy. Because when you look at Harper, he's very conservative. He's like the typical conservative outlook. And when this whole liberal agenda started taking over, they're like, no, bring in the fresh person. This is very progressive and everything. And now look where we're at. And
well, I think Harper kind of hurt himself a lot because he wasn't very charismatic. Like Harper,
he was pretty dry.
He was really dry.
Yeah.
And when it came to that election, it kind of looked like he didn't care.
Yeah.
And that was the problem. I thought he was burnt out. So I'll be honest, and I've said this before on the podcast, even I voted for Trudeau 10 years ago.
What made you vote for him?
I thought that Harper just kind of bailed it in. Like he mailed it in. He just didn't seem like he wanted the position.
Yeah.
And I was one of the saying to him, like, okay, I don't mind a change just to freshen it up. But then as soon as I saw what Trudeau did, I went right back on the conservative. Oh yeah, but it wasn't like we fell in trap. It was good to shake up the conservatives, saying, "Listen, you're not going to run the country for 50 years and do what you want, and then put somebody who doesn't care about it, the country in there." And you saw right after he lost the election, he was out. Like he was done.
He just kind of faded off into oblivion. Like,
exactly. And now he's having a resurgence.
Yeah.
Now he's got the fire back.
Yeah.
But where was that 10 years ago? Right. But that's the problem, right? So then you got this drama teacher coming in who doesn't know anything. He thinks that the books are going to balance themselves. And I don't understand why people are going to vote for Liberal again. And I hate this stupid thing where people say that, because, the Liberals fight for minorities and they're saying like, the LGBTQ community. And I'm like, who said the Conservatives are going to do anything for the LGBTQ community? They're not going to take away your rights or anything. It has nothing to do with that. But they're just like, well, liberals, because they feel that they're liberal.
I think the Conservatives care about the bigger problems.
They don't give a shit who you're sleeping with. They don't care.
Let's actually take care of the big boy stuff first, and whatever happens, go do whatever.
Yeah.
But that's the whole reason why we're in this mess. And I wanted to talk to you about what you think about Poilievre and Carney together. Do you think he's putting himself in a position to overtake Carney, like the way he's been campaigning? Because there's been a lot of people who are saying that he's not really doing enough actually.
Well, one of the reasons why I don't think Poilievre got enough respect for getting Trudeau out. They're saying, well, he was in the name caller and all. That's what they're saying. Oh, he's a name caller. Well, from him not attacking, but actually bringing to light Trudeau and how his downfalls were the last couple of years, finally, I think got people on side going, maybe this guy's right. So he didn't get enough credit for getting Trudeau out. That's the first thing, I think. But now people are saying, well, they were fine with him up until Trump got in, and then they were calling him name calling. They're like, well, they're scared that Poilievre's going to be another Trump, which I don't think is the situation at all, right? Like Poilievre's not name calling. He's not making fun of people. He's not doing that. He's not doing that. Not to mention, Donald Trump doesn't want Poilievre as the government. Haven't you read? He goes, have you heard what Trump said? Trump said, and Google this yourself. He's like, I want Carney in because he's easier to manipulate.
Poilievre is just like, he's no nonsense. He's just
that's the thing. And I don't think people, so if you hate Trump, you should be voting PC.
Yeah.
You should not be voting liberal. Trump has actually said, he goes, yeah, my vote is for Carney. I want to be able to manipulate them. Because Carney doesn't care about Canada. As long as the US, everything, he doesn't care if the global agenda is, and what it's actually coming through, and we're talking about real estate. He's like, if you bankrupt, or I call it bankrupt Canada, or if you say to somebody like yourself, Owen, the globalist agenda is like, you're going to own nothing and be happy about it.
Yes.
And they're already starting to do that. The first thing the Liberals did, like they're talking about housing. Look how high housing has gotten, the price of housing since the Liberal government's been over here. Look how much less you can afford because of this stupid nonsense carbon tax, right? So they are pushing an agenda for you that you can't afford a house, you can't afford anything. So you might as well rely on them and they'll make you happy. Own nothing, shut up, and you'll be happy. Is that a utopia you want to live in? Does that make any sense? But that's the globalist agenda. That's Carney, like 100%. I'm not even bringing in his pedophilia and all this other stuff that's going on with Epstein's Island. That is a totally different topic. I'm not even getting into the conspiracies and all that stuff, how he's tied in with the globalists and how he's an elitist and he's already been bought off by all the top banks. I'm not even going to talk about that. You can Google that yourself. I'm talking what's happening in real life. And one thing I sent you this morning, which pertains to the difference between Poilievre and the Liberals, is one of these things which maybe people don't know about, which is Bill C-12, right? I sent you the video. I don't know. Did you know what Bill C-12 is?
I briefly know it, but perhaps you can give it in depth.
So Bill C-12 is a bill, and you can probably play the video over in if people want to see it in the podcast. And basically what it is, it's locking Canada in. The Liberals years ago locked in they want to have eventually by 2015, zero emissions. So every 5 years, you have to cut emissions by a certain amount. And what they do is, and how do you cut emissions? Well, you tax people. And you tax people to make sure that they use less and less what they feel is carbon dating, whatever it is, like adding emissions into Canada. which makes no sense. First off, Canada is one of the least emissions of carbon in all the world. Second of all, do you know what plants need to live? Carbon. Do you know what happens when you introduce carbon into a desert?
Trees, like nature.
Yeah,
Nature
plant
starts up.
grows.
Plants
Plants start to grow when
Yeah.
you add carbon.
Yeah.
So why would you get rid of carbon?
Yeah. I don't understand why you got to tax people for it.
So, but on top of that, that's exactly. You asked me before, what is taxing? So the idea is if you tax people, they'll stop using it. Well, people aren't stopping using cars, because and then don't tell me that the electric cars are any better. They're actually worse for the environment. If you really cared about the environment, those batteries, they are so toxic. Electric batteries are so toxic. The average person needs to drive an electric car a minimum of 8 years for its economic footprint to equal a gas car, like a combustion engine car. 8 years.
8 years.
Yeah, years. And that's just to drive it to equal, because again, you don't know where the electricity is coming from, right? You can't prove that. Then after, what do you do with the batteries? At least with a combustion engine, the alloys and metals are all separated. You can actually go into an engine, and separate the alloys, and then reuse them, recycle them, something else. Because of all the components in electric batteries, it's dead. It actually becomes toxic.
Yeah.
And they have to bury it. You're burying it under the ground. You're talking about the econ of the world. That's killing people. So so their idea is you tax people, they'll stop their behavior. It's bullshit.
It's just like a money grab.
It's a money grab. It's such a bullshit. So what happened recently, right? So sorry, let's get back to the C-12. Bill C-12, and it will continue. It is enacted in law, which means that it doesn't matter what tax you put on people. They every 5 years have to have some sort of tax or something people to show that emissions are decreasing, right? So every 5 years. So it doesn't matter what tax somebody gets rid of. So say this one is, say they get rid of the carbon tax, they're going to tax you something else because Bill C-12 is still enacted. And unless the government cancels, gets rid of this bill, they are obligated globally for this bill, for these emissions. Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
So Carney's come in, and we just had, and Elise called this yesterday. So Elise is in the background here. And she's like, is this for real? Is this April Fool's? Gas has dropped by 20 cents. I'm like, guess what? They dropped the carbon tax. No, Carney's dropped the carbon tax, which should have never fucking been implemented in the first place.
There's no need for this.
No need for it, right? So people started buying gas, right? Like, oh my God, we got more money in our pocket, right? So it just doesn't make sense. So and the thing is, Carney's saying he's not getting rid of the carbon tax. That's what people fail to realize. He's put a pause on it. And if you watch his videos, he's talked about pausing the carbon tax until after the election.
And then he implements it back.
No, not even that. He's going to double it.
So once he comes back,
he's doubling it.
He's doubling it.
So just think about how the carbon tax affected gas. You got more money in your pocket all of a sudden, right? And it's going to be good up until April 28th, right? Because he's a man of the people. Bullshit. So you're going to feel good about going to the election. All of a sudden, he's going to just tax, and then he's going to tax people double that. Now, sorry, he doesn't tax people. This is the other thing that people don't understand. When you read in what the liberal government's saying, he's like, well, Carney's like, we're not going to tax the people. We're going to tax the companies that have emissions. Well, what do you think the companies do? They pass it on to us, the consumers. So he's like, we're just going to tax the companies. That's all you're doing now. So don't let him pull the wool over your eyes. And that's what people are doing. They're believing his bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, listen, he's full of so much contradictory statements. It's ridiculous, right? Like, well, you have to dig into the look for the bullshit because it sounds nice. Oh, he's getting rid of emissions. I was in an Uber the other day and I explained this to the guy. He's like, he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, Google it, find a lot, research. He's like, what an asshole. I'm like, yeah. That's a response you should be having. Like, what an asshole. Because remember, he's only putting on a face until election, right? The other question is, Free, why do you think he's doing a snap election?
And that's what I was going to get to next. I was going to ask you, do you think Trudeau dropping out, him coming in, was it calculated?
Of course. And why do you think there was a snap election?
Well, I think the reason they did it is because Trudeau was not really in favor with all Canadians, all liberals. Everyone hated him.
It's part of it.
Trudeau's in with the globalists, the WF.
He's a puppet.
Yeah. But the thing is, to move everything for the globalist agenda, which you're talking about right now with the carbon and electric cars and everything, They needed someone fresh. And I think Carney came in there. So this whole plan, the globalist agenda, like
But you're talking about stuff we already know about. What I'm asking is, why do you think Carney, after he's already been the prime minister, why do you think he put an election so quickly?
Because he wants to hoodwink everybody to vote for him and then continue back with the plan that
if he went longer, I think his true colors would have come out.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Because he would have had the election. There's no way he could have gone longer than a month. His skin probably is crawling that he couldn't add to tax. Oh my God, I can't tax these people. I can't. That fucking asshole. I'm sorry. He's a fucking asshole. And I can't understand how people can't see through his bullshit. He is like, he's dying to tax us.
You see he's trying to be relatable now. He's like playing hockey. He's with Team Canada and everything like that.
He got Mike Myers, who was living in New York City and loves being an American citizen, to say, vote for Carney. You don't even live in Canada anymore, Mike. Like, you've totally, and all of a sudden you go on Saturday Live, so I could be on Saturday Live, you know, Canada's not for sale, all this bullshit. You fucking sold out Canada, Mike Myers.
Yeah.
Don't use Mike Myers as your fucking poster boy. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
People, don't be stupid. You're being hoodwinked. I don't understand. Definition of insanity. Last 10 years, you think it's going to change. What's wrong with Ontario and Canada? How many liberal signs? Not to mention, I've also seen footage of people of the cops or like in areas removing PC signs.
What?
Yeah, they're removing PC signs.
So you can't be supporting the conservatives in public.
No. So how does this relate to real estate?
Let's go back to real estate. Exactly.
So what's happening in the real estate market right now? What do you like? You and I have been talking for a while. Obviously, you're not a realtor, right? So I don't know if you've seen, like, from the media, what do you think is happening? And I'll tell you what's really happening now.
I mean, it's the same rhetoric that I see. A lot of people are complaining. Well, not complaining, but they're worried that they can't afford things. They can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford groceries. So it's like a whole trickle effect. Like, when you can't afford just the basic necessities, the last thing you're thinking about is buying a house. So there's a lot more inventory for rentals. So we spoke about the rental market right now. There's still a lot.
It's getting hammered.
It's getting hammered. We have like immigration coming in. So there's like this thing where people think there's not enough inventory, but because of immigration. And I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. Like, one thing you're hearing from the news is this, but the numbers tell a whole different story.
Yeah.
So I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah. So first off, we've had more inventory. Like, we went up 75% in inventory last month.
And this is for the condo market, right?
No, this is
just in even houses.
All of it.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. Inventory.
75%.
Yeah.
75.
Yeah. 75% inventory. Yeah.
In the past.
So when you compare, so we haven't gone to the March numbers yet, but February over February. So the March numbers are supposed to come in the next couple of days, but we've had 2.2% was a decrease in the average sale price, which I don't think March has been any better. And so I think and the sales are down 27%. Right? So people are down. Why are sales down? They just kept decreasing rates. March, we had another decrease in rates. Like another quarter of a point, which they weren't going to reduce the rates until the tariff thing came out, right? And then because of Trump, which again, I don't think it's going to have as great of an impact as they think. You know, and I think Trudeau's also using that. Sorry, Trump is using that and probably helping the liberal government, the liberals, because he's prolonging it, right? Until probably after the election, right?
Yeah, Trump is smart.
So he's getting what he wants. And again, if a vote for Carney is a vote for Trump, I'll say that again. A vote for Carney is a vote for Trump. You tell me you hate Trump, then why are you voting Carney? Anyway, and I know my blast people may not agree with that, but he's actually said that. So anyway, do what you want with that. So we're seeing over here. So I think there's also the tariffs have an effect in the psychology. We've lowered our interest rates. People still can't afford, they can't afford groceries. How are they going to afford a home? So it doesn't matter that the interest rates have dropped. The caveat to that is that interest rates keep dropping, but people are still not qualifying for purchases in their homes. It's still very hard to qualify. So when I talk to my mortgage brokers, what are you seeing out there? Like, yeah, we're like, sure, the rates are dropping, but they're still not qualifying the rate that they should be, right? Yeah. So the mortgage laws need to be changed. They're not changing them. So decreasing interest rates is good for homeowners that currently have, or somebody has a line of credit, so it gives us more affordability. But you've seen how much that tax, the cut of the carbon really helps. So if they really wanted to help out Canadians, they need to cut that, but they haven't done that. So that's not happening, right? And then the election, because of all the uncertainty that's happening here, people are still taking their time. We have a bunch of listings right now, and I've said this sounds like the same rhetoric over and over again. We're not getting showings.
No one's pulling up.
No, I have one listed right now below like $25,000 below what the neighbor sold for, and we don't even get showings this week. Like, let's go. We're just not even getting showings. Not even offers. We're not even getting showings. So I think people are waiting to see maybe the end of April, which right now is usually a good market. So that's what's happening. And all this political stuff that's happening, and so it does affect us real estate. So the reason why we're talking about Carney, we're talking about what the situation was, when I talked to Owen about this, he's like, well, how does it affect real estate? I'm like, it's huge, right? Especially with the uncertainty, what's happening, right? There's a lot of people wondering what's going to happen. So if the Conservatives get in, I think it'd be huge for real estate as well, for a couple of things. One, for this C12, the new government is the only one that can cancel that C12. Right? Which is, again, I'll tell you again, it's interesting. Canada's net zero policy facing growing criticism for increasing costs and making it harder for many Canadians, aiming at a net zero emissions by 2050. It's led to higher energy prices and an economic strain, right? And again, it's in law, so only Conservatives can cancel that. So I think that's a positive. Second, if you look at what's happening for tax purposes, right? Carney said he was going to cut for some 1% or something like that too, whereas you saw that Poilievre, 15% for like under the 1% of the lower class citizens. And I remember I posted that, and some of my friends are like, that you don't qualify for that extra 15% cut. I'm like, I don't care. You think it's for me for selfish reasons why I'm posting this stuff? I'm helping
for the common
man
and woman. Yeah.
If the common person could save 15% on their tax, which is also bullshit. It's not in the States, which should never, that it's not constitutional in the States, by the way.
To pay taxes?
To pay taxes.
I know. Like,
that's a whole other story.
That's a whole different kind of worms, yeah.
But you try to tell the IRS that's a whole, there's a whole thing on it. It's actually not constitutional to pay taxes, but again, they do it. So that extra 15% could help, average Canadians, right? Regular average Canadians to afford more money. It gives them more money in their pocket. How can you not like that, right? He's going to axe the tax. You've seen what Carney did in 2 days. People are starting to get more money in their pocket. What if that no longer existed? Now you can afford to go to your grocery store. You can afford to go to Costco instead of putting a card, which used to cost you $200 is now costing you $5.
You're not paying $9 for ketchup.
$9 for ketchup?
Yeah, Heinz bottle.
Oh my God.
You've seen that, right? Heinz. Even a bag of chips DC is $4 now, like $3.86. You can't even enjoy like a Friday night with like a.
I just don't
get it.
What I'm saying? So I'm just trying to compare. So how does this affect you? So what? And Poilievre said he tried to make houses more affordable, right? I don't know how he's going to do that. Like, I don't really know. I don't know how Carney thinks he's going to do it. I don't know. That whole thing is like, it blows my mind because, again, they're talking about all across Canada.
Yeah.
And we don't, no offense, but everybody, doesn't matter what province you're in, only cares about their own little town. Like, we're here in Toronto. People in Toronto care about what's happening in Toronto. People in Ajax care about what's happening. People in Ajax. People in Mississauga. People in Alberta. Like, they're not looking like the whole globe's like, oh, yeah, you're going to give us affordable housing? How? Right? Like, how do you do that? Right? And the other thing, sometimes the policies don't always affect people in Ontario. Right? They had that whole cut a few years ago. It's like, for first-time home buyers, nobody in Toronto was qualifying because you had to be under like $300,000 or $500,000 was a couple of years ago. And they're like, where in Toronto do you buy something for that? Like, you can, but it's very, very hard, right? Yeah. So anyway, my point is that the housing thing is always interesting to me. But I still believe if they cut the carbon tax and they get rid of this C12, they put more money into people's pockets, they get rid of the carbon tax, they give 15% more to people for their income tax. It's huge. Now, the other thing Poilievre came out, which I absolutely love. He talked about not land transfer tax. He talked about capital gains. Did you see the announcement on capital gains?
Yes. I can speak about it, but like, I don't know all the facts and figures behind it.
So let's rewind. I remember this. There was an announcement on my birthday. Do you remember my birthday?
Yeah, it's okay, April 19th.
16th, close.
16th, yes.
Attaboy, close. It's okay. All right, good job.
Yeah, my God.
So April 16 last year, I remember we did a photo shoot on the way home because we were trying to list this house, which was supposed to be expensive. Trudeau came out with that announcement about the capital gains, right? And my financial planner, Jason Pereira, who's very proper, texted me F this, F that, F this. And I'm like, we didn't hear the announcement. So Julia and I were in the car. We're like, what's going on here? So I call him. He goes like, did you hear the announcement? I'm like, well, no, right? There wasn't a lot of information at this point. He goes, Trudeau's increasing capital gains. So what it is he went, so capital gains, if you sold a property for income for investment purposes, right? And let's say you've owned it for a certain period of time, any of the gain you've made, so if you take off what you spent and what you've earned, your net, you get taxed on that. You're supposed to get taxed on that 50%, which adds to your income. So for example, if you sold the property and made $200,000, $100,000 gets added to your income. So if you were making $100,000, now your income's $200,000 and you get taxed for your income tax at $200,000. That's how it works, right? Now, obviously you have a spouse, you split it 50-50 or whatever, or partnered, whatever that's, right? But we're just making it simple. Okay. Well, Trudeau came out and said, he's like, well, if you make capital gains over $250,000, anything above that 250, well, 250 would be taxed at 50%. Anything above that will be taxed at 66%. So if you made $350,000, right? So the first 250 gets taxed at 50%. So $125,000 gets taxed, right? You got added to your income. But the additional $100,000, so the 350 to the 250 is 100. Now $66,000 gets taxed to you as opposed to 50. And think about it, if you're selling properties for overtime, it's huge.
It's a big.
It's huge,
especially if you've waited years to get that gain.
So this is one of the reasons why a lot of homeowners that own condos in Toronto were putting their units up for sale.
Yeah,
because of this reason.
Yeah.
So you wanted affordable housing. Well, you're not doing it the right way. Now, first of all, people can't afford it. Now you're putting condos on the market, and now people can't afford to buy them. So now the prices are dropping. Was that you're trying to bankrupt people? That's how you're trying to get affordable housing? It doesn't make sense.
Everything.
Yeah. So Poilievre, and I actually like Poilievre's.
Yeah.
His suggestion was, if you sell a property, investment property, you can defer your capital gains if you purchase another investment property. Mm-hmm. So all that capital gains will be deferred until you sell that next investment property. Mm-hmm. So what we talked about in the past, right? If you're going from one property to another property, say if you're upscaling, which a lot of times you are, well, then you don't pay the tax. You just kind of defer it. And then when you eventually sell that property, I think that's what you get taxed on. Mm. So that's kind of how it works. And it helps the real estate because now you have people, so you have people trading again.
Yeah.
You're not getting taxed.
What about that? They also mentioned something about taxing unrealized gains as well, too. What are your thoughts on that?
Like that one I don't know too much about.
Yeah, because Freeland came out and said,
anything out of that woman's mouth, I'm just like, I'm cringing.
We're going to tax unrealized gains.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was like, if your property's gone up, that's right.
Yeah.
And that, so the unrealized tax, that's right. I remember this. It was like, if people lived in a house and their value has gone, so you're talking about people retired. If you bought your house for $50,000, it's gone up to $1 million. Mm-hmm. Well, we should tax you on that gain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And these are people's, was it like also your residential home? Like your look like your matrimonial home? Is that the term?
Matrimonial home or your principal residence.
Principal residence, exactly.
Matrimonial home is your first home that you and your wife are together, but it could also be your principal residence.
Principal residence. So
principal residences are not supposed to be taxed.
Yes.
So they're trying to tax your principal residence.
And these are like people who've been living there for decades and they want to pass it to their kids.
Yeah. So, and their agenda is like, basically they think they're Robin Hood. Steal from the rich and give to the poor. Yeah. The problem is the rich know how to avoid taxes. Yeah. So the rich stay richer and richer. And the poor, you're just giving money to give them no incentive to get out of being poor. Like, and we talked about this before. I'll reiterate it. Like, I don't know how many people you guys know that especially come to the country that are relying on the welfare and they're relying on the government. How many of them are motivated to, I don't know too many of them that are on welfare that I've seen before that are motivated to get a job. Mm-hmm.
Just milking the system.
Yeah. And it's happening, like you hear all the stories, especially from immigrants, milking the system. Well, the government gives them ways to milk the system. I think the one thing I did like about Trump, and
you didn't?
I do like about Trump, is like he was getting rid of all the people that shouldn't be Americans. Mm-hmm. Like he was calling countries and saying, come get your people.
Come get you. If you're not
here, we're going to tax you. Okay, they were there. That was brilliant.
They moved fast too. Remember, like I think it was
within 18 hours.
Within 18 hours, they sent like a whole plane.
Was it Cuba or was it? I remember. I forget what it was, and it was like, we're going to put a tariff. It's like, we don't come get people. And he's like, hey, listen. At the end of the day, gets done. Here in Canada, like we have people going to jail, and they know they're going to get left on bail. Like how many people are going on bail? Sorry, they're committing crimes. They're on bail. Mm-hmm. because there's no system to actually what's the word I'm looking for? There's no punitive damages to them, right? To restrict them from trying to do anything further. So.
We need strong leadership. That's the thing. We don't have. If you look at the way Trump handled like Trump and Vance, you know that Zelensky when they're in the office and he's coming here like trying to boss these guys around and everything. Trump just put his foot down and Vance is like.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of like when they were kind of saying, why aren't you wearing a suit? And you just made belittling them. I didn't like that. It was just part of the fodder, but it was like at the same time, I get it, but there's certain things I would say, I think the war should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I've heard of those. I don't know if they're conspiracies, but I remember Boris Yeltsin was like they could have had the war done within a month or two, but he stopped them because it made too much money. Mm-hmm. And I've heard of people going into the Ukraine, and they're talking about people on yachts and things like that. They're like, they're living like, and I hate throwing that out there because we have friends of mine that are in Ukraine that there are the war zones. People are getting hit hard, but we're not talking about the war zones. It's like that's not the whole country, right? You got other parts of the country and they're living it up, and it's like, it's hard because it's hard to get behind any of these kind of wars because we don't know, and with our media, we don't know what's real and not. Right. And they always push an agenda, especially our left media here. Like you see the CBC, they don't want to be defunded, which I would love if the PC government got in. They defund the CBC, get rid of those guys so fast because they're pushing. They are pushing the left. They can
speak freely now, especially if Trudeau's gone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, the CBC would be defunded, which is amazing.
That's what I was saying. You're saying
so amazing.
Yes.
Well, think about what Trudeau did. He won't allow us to share anything like in media, on social media. And he uses all these things. Well, we need to pay this. And like, it has nothing to do with that. He doesn't want you to share the shit that he was doing wrong. Right. And we got to wrap up already.
I know. I was going to ask you one last question.
Sure.
When you look at Carney, Poilievre, everything, I feel like for us to get the change that we want, we have to overcome this feelings over facts agenda, because I think now the liberals and the left kind of have a power grab now because they feel empowered. Their progressive ideas are getting pushed forward. It's being celebrated. It's becoming like a cultural norm. The right represents a side of people who are actually going to come in and, well, on the paper, they think that we're going to be stripped of that power. So for them, they're like, okay, you're going to take away my rights, my LGBTQ, everything, women empowerment.
But I always say, but where is in their mandate they wanted to do that? It's never been part of the mandate.
But that's the thing. That's the branding. So for your ideas and everything that you're advocating for, if you try to tell that to someone, they're not even going to hear you out because all they're seeing is the way a bull sees red. If you show me right conservatives, I don't care. I'm going to be triggered. I'm going to be upset. So for us to get over this and to get our ideas forward, we have to get those people to think clearly. And I think that's going to be a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and it was also funny during the part where Trudeau was still leader, like even the LGBTQ was turning against him because they just didn't want Poilievre to win. That was the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
But I would honestly sit there and I would have a conversation with people. The problem is like, I think people are just bashing each other right now. How do you believe? I have friends of mine that are teachers and they're told to always vote liberal because of your rights and all that stuff too. And I'm like, well, think about 10 years ago, guys. I would think about, instead of like right and left and rules and all that, how was the government and the economy 10 years ago and how is it now? Mm-hmm. And that's how you should choose your vote.
Mm-hmm. But you see, you're in a different, you're the way you think is not the way everybody thinks. Like the majority of them are like,
Yeah. I honestly don't give a shit whose dick you suck or who you're sleeping with at night.
Yeah.
That's a problem. I'm sorry for saying it that way. And I hate how that people, I don't care. Like, don't flaunt it in front of my kids. I'm like, why did that become part of the political atmosphere?
Yeah.
Why did that become part? I don't think most conservatives
it's like
don't give a shit what you're doing behind closed doors.
It's like 1.5% of the population. Why are we making it a thing?
Not even that. I don't care what you're doing behind, as long as it's not illegal.
Yeah.
You're not harming somebody else. If it's two consenting adults, I don't give a shit
it's
what
your
you're
life.
doing.
You do whatever you got to do.
You want to be a cat and have a master to do what you want to do. You want to wear diapers? I don't give a shit. I don't care. But the problem is they think the conservatives care what they're doing. Like we're not trying to take that right away from you. You already have same-sex marriage. You already have all the rights as everybody else. We're not taking that away from you.
It's here.
It's here. It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
And it'd be stupid for government, especially a PC government, coming in and saying, we're going to remove those rights. They've never said that. And Poilievre has said that over and over again, right? He's like, we're not removing your rights. And I don't understand where that came from. right? And it's like, so anyway, all I'm saying to you guys to do, and I'm sorry for swearing, I'm trying to do better. When you cast your vote, guys, think about the way things were 10, 11 years ago and the way things are now. And the direction's not going to change, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So you thought you needed to change before. You think the Carney's not the change, in my opinion, because he's doing exactly the same thing that the government before him did.
Absolutely. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Make sure to do your own due diligence, do your research, learn about both sides, and make a very pragmatic decision that works the best for you. These are our opinions. We're having a discourse. We're not trying to say to do whatever we're saying, but do your own research, make the best decision, because you have the power of a vote and your vote matters at the end of the day. But just get out there and do what's best for the country, the economy, your family, the future generations. That's all we're advocating for. We'll see you next week for episode 118, and have a great rest of your week. Cheers. Ciao. Peace out.